Good morning. Welcome to Rise with the Sun, where I, Conrad Chua, talk about my thoughts of business, technology, and society first thing as the sun rises. It's currently 5:45 in the morning here in Cambridge, and this is the view of my garden. Right, so you can see if you notice, the grass is a bit unkempt. I really need to prune some of those weeds, and the reason the garden is a bit out of control, well, partly it's me being lazy, but also I've been away for the last 2 weeks. I was in Tokyo and Singapore, and it is in Tokyo that I will base this this episode on, right? And based on my experience. And I thought I'm going to do that using a framework or a question that someone I really respect, someone's analysis, whose views and analytical process I really respect. That's Horace Dediu. He runs Simco. He does a lot of tech analysis, particularly about Apple, and he runs the Asymmetric, or he's one of the two people who run the Asymmetric podcast. I highly recommend that. Anyway, Horace has this one question that he always asks when he looks at a particular technology, particular product and feature, and that's how it helps him think about how powerful that is. And that is the question, what is the job to be done? And when I was in Tokyo, I had this experience with the Tokyo subway, right? As most people do. And the question there, I thought was very interesting in terms of what is the job to be done. And it's not the job of a transit operator, not the job of a city planner, but the job from the perspective of me, a commuter, a tourist, just a regular human navigating an unfamiliar place. And that job is very simple, which is, how do I pay for public transport? Help me pay for public transport. And it's a deceptively simple job, and yet how cities have solved this problem tells us everything about where they are in terms of technology maturity, their economic strategy, and in many cases, the state of the payments landscape that the transit operator finds itself in. So, when I visited Tokyo in 2019, the experience of paying for public transport for foreigner tourists was terrible. It was just unnecessarily hard. I remember I went to a machine right at the subway, and it only accepted cash. I didn't have enough. Okay, so I tried the next machine that accepted cards, but it didn't accept my international credit cards. Didn't work. Now I had to walk to a station with a kiosk that accepted an international card. It was just a ritual in friction. Now fast forward to my trip to Tokyo in the spring of 2025. I land there, and instead of going to the subway, I just opened my iPhone, right? And the process was unbelievably simple now. All I did was go Apple Wallet, add this travel card, and take a look at the list of travel cards available, especially those in China. It's just amazing. I know China's big, so actually, percentage-wise, the number of cities there is not going to be that great, but it's a huge list. It's by far the biggest country list, the largest number of cities that offer this service. You see Hong Kong with Octopus, Japan. Ooh, I just need to click on Suica. I could have done it for Pasmo or any of the others. And in a few clicks, linking it to my Apple Wallet and setting it up as my transit card, and voila! The Suica card, it's digital. It is now on my Apple Wallet, on my phone. I can top up anytime I like using my international cards, and I just go to the turnstile and tap, right? And it's extremely fast. One person I met on this trip told me that actually the Japan Railway was pushed to doing this innovation because back in during the COVID pandemic, semiconductor chips were in short supply, so they couldn't supply or provide as many physical cards as they used to, so they had to do this. I'm not sure. The person has no reason, as far as I could tell, to distort or to lie, but if anyone knows anything about this, please let me know or can confirm. That would be great. But I thought that was unbelievable. It's just such an amazing way and seamless ways of doing things. So it felt like I'd skipped ahead a generation in user experience, but that experience, it raised a much deeper set of questions. And so I like to use my usual three-order thinking, right, to think about, well, what is going on? Now, the first order approach, or the surface level reaction of another transit operator who's maybe got something like the Suica or Oyster card, might be, all right, let's do what Tokyo did. We've got a proprietary card system, let's bring it to Apple Wallet, problem solved, these pesky foreign tourists, I'll get them off my back. Many cities have done that. So if you remember that list, there was Hong Kong's Octopus was there. There was a handful of US cities, but a whole list of cities in China, right? Now, each city built its own local solution, tightly integrated, custom engineered, vertically optimized. And these systems, they work brilliantly, right, for locals. And now with them on Apple Wallet, maybe for tourists as well. Now, the question actually is, well, what is the cost of interoperability, of driving scale, of maintaining such a closed payment system? So if I think about the second order thinking, it takes a step back and asks, why do we as a transit operator need to issue a card at all? Now, in places like London, in Singapore, they do have transit cards, but you don't need them, right? You can just tap your bank card, all right? The physical credit card or debit card that you have on the turnstile. Or if you have them on your phone, just tap your phone. These are open loop EMV systems. They let riders use what they already have in their wallet. You don't need a new card. You don't need a new account. I think in China they use WeChat Pay, Alipay, right? I'm going to go to China in a few months. I'll check that out, right? But again, there are ways now. Technology has advanced to the point where transit operators do not need to have that transit card. They don't need to incur the costs of trying to drive adoption, because the adoption is already there. People already have these cards. Of course, you've got to think, you're a public transit operator, you have to cater to everybody. So there will be people who don't have their phones, don't want to use their credit, or don't have credit card, right? I think that's quite a big issue in China, that maybe in other places where credit card adoption is low, and you have to evolve in a different way. But the job becomes clearer. It's not just about fare collection, it's about removing or reducing the barriers to entry for commuters. So the solution, use what people already have. You as a transit operator, you don't need to reinvent payment. You just need to plug into the distribution. Of course, even as a transit operator, you've got to pay something. You've got to pay a third-party payments solution person, and it's not going to be cheap because the demands of public transit are huge. If you think about peak period, the fact that you've got to have high reliability, be able to process transactions extremely quickly, because I don't know about you, but I hate it when I'm behind somebody, usually a tourist, who's fumbling with their card at the turnstile and holding everybody up at peak period. Now, this leads us to a third more profound layer of thinking, which is no matter which system a transit operator chooses, whether you do Suica, EMV, Go Open, QR, NFC, whatever, right? They all end up having to integrate with Apple and Google systems. Transit operators need iOS. They need Android. They need access to the operating systems that sit in every commuter's pocket. In other words, even when cities try to build their own systems, and once they put it onto Apple Wallet, Android, they're ultimately distributing through these same two global platforms. And in China, of course, you've got a different system there. So the real gatekeepers are not at the subway turnstiles. They're in Cupertino and Mountain View. And that's the third order thinking that I like people to have. The game is not about transit cards versus credit cards versus whether you can put them versus physical cards or cards that you can load onto your phone wallet. It's about who owns that last inch between your wallet, your pocket, and that turnstile. So for transit authorities, choice between open loop, closed loop is not just technical, it's strategic. A closed loop that gives you control, open loop gives you huge scale, right? But platform dependence on Apple and Android at the moment is still inevitable. So the real question becomes, are you solving the job to be done, or are you solving a job that lures you into thinking that you're doing something, but really you're not? Now, I want to end off today by showing something that I saw in Singapore as an example of technology that's not doing the job. This is a toilet flush in a public toilet in Singapore in one of the modern science park. Now, I don't know about you, but I think the whole toilet flush has been perfected, right? Obviously, the Japanese are right up at the ACMA, but frankly, you pressing a lever, pushing down a lever, pushing down or holding your hand over a panel, that's good enough, right? The job to be done is in a public toilet, flush, keep it clean, and do it quickly, no fuss, no muss, I can go. This guy here, it took me about what felt like minutes, but it's probably only like 30 seconds for it to flush because the reader was just not responsive. I didn't know whether I had to push, I put my hand over it, and finally the blue light, ring of blue light came on and it flushed. But what really strikes me is, why does it expect me to scan a QR code, right? Setting aside the fact that it's in completely the wrong direction, right? Because at the point when I can see the QR code, I'm done, I need to get out, right? Why would I take out my phone, risk my phone dropping into the toilet, scan your QR code and find out more about you, buddy, the toilet flush, right? This is just one example of how you really should not be looking at using technology. Right. So anyway, on that note, you'll be glad to know I did get the thing to flush. I quickly left. People were waiting for me outside. I thought it was quite funny, but really somebody invested huge amounts of money to do this. Anyway, it's coming up to 6 a.m. here in Cambridge. A new day, whole new day awaits. So till next week, it just leaves me to say, well, have a good rest of the week and catch up next weekend.